Okay, so the next few things we're going to do are we're going to open up something new in Live 12. We're going to go through the main tools. Now there's like a tool palette like we have in like a graphics program. You've already seen that a little bit, but we're going to go through each thing in that palette. Then we're going to talk about how to do something very simple like adding numbers. And then we're going to start building stuff. Okay, so stick with me for 2 big sections while we learn some basic principles, and then we're going to start building something fun. Okay, so let's go over those first few things in our tool palette. So I'm going to go to Max for Live. I'm going to go to the top. For what we're going to do here, it's not really going to matter whether we choose audio effect, instrument, or MIDI effect. I'll do MIDI effect, but the tools are all the same. Okay, now I'm going to click this little button to open her up. Now Max for Live is loading. All right, and here we are. So I'm going to drag this to be nice and big. I'm going to get rid of these comments. They're cool. I don't need them. And then I always, just out of habit, drag this to the bottom and disconnect that. I'm going to click on that line and just press delete. I don't really need to do it for what we're about to do. So here is my kind of main tool palette. Okay, we've got tools all the way around the side, but we're going to focus on these ones at the top. And we're going to start with an object. So I'm just going to click and drag one down there. I can also just double click on it or single click on it to make an object. Okay, now I'm going to put a message box here too, just because I want you to be able to spot the difference, okay? This is an object, this is a message. It's important to be able to see the difference. Object has a thicker border on the top and the bottom, and messages don't really have any border, right? They have inlets and outlets, and objects have inlets and outlets too, but they don't need to, and the number of inlets and outlets they have are going to change. So what do objects do? Objects are our main workhorse. Each object is a little program, okay? If you want to go back to the like guitar effects pedals that I was talking about with like stomp boxes, each one of these is a stomp box. So I could say something like delay. Okay, now we have a little program that delays things, okay? I could do random. Let's say I want something that generates random numbers. I can choose an object called random. That's great. Now there's probably around, I don't know, a couple thousand objects. There's a lot. And a lot of using Max is understanding what object to use for what situation. So we'll get more into that shortly. Now each object has inlets and outlets, okay? The inlets are at the top, the outlets are at the bottom. Okay, you can click and drag to make a connection to something. That's not going to make a whole lot of sense what I just did there. I can click on the patch, which is the cable, the line, and press delete to delete it. Now the number of inlets and outlets will change depending on what object you're using. In the random object, there are 2 inlets and 1 outlet. But if I did an object like select, we have, I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger. We have 2 inlets and 2 outlets. Okay, so it's slightly different. I can make a more complicated object like this, and now we have a bunch of inlets and a bunch of outlets. Okay, so these are all going to change for each object that we use. But don't worry, I'm going to show you how to get comfortable with these things. All right, next let's talk about messages. That is these. Okay, if we think of objects like little programs, messages are kind of the opposite. Messages don't do anything. They're like little carrier pigeons, okay? They just hold on to information and send information, okay? So I could say, pickle. I could write pickle into this message box and it's going to be perfectly happy. Now, how is that useful? Well, different objects want different messages, and there's a couple different ways to get a message into an object, but one of them would be to do something like this. We could say pickle into select. Now, the particular select object, or you could think of it as the select program, doesn't know what to do with the word pickle. So if I click on the word pickle, it's going to send it down this line and into select. Okay. And there we go. We just did it. So now select got pickle, and select is like, I don't know what to do with pickle. So nothing happened. But we can put numbers in message boxes. We can put words. We can put a series of words. You can do a lot of different stuff. Messages will be sent down their output. They'll be sent out when one of two things happens. One, we can just click on them. That will send them down. That will, or another way to put that would be to output. That'll output their contents, whatever their message is, when we click on it. We can also hit them with a bang or a button. So if we do that, now whenever I click this bang, it's going to hit that message and send it to that object. Okay. Let's do this just to prove it. Let's use an object called print. Let's get rid of that and put this down into there. Now what print is going to do, that is an object that is going to send anything to the Max console. Okay, this is the Max console. Okay, so if I hit this bang, it says, the Max console says print 0. The Max console is like a great way just to see what's going on. You also get errors here sometimes. So if something's not working, you want to look at the Max console and see what it's doing or what it's not doing. So I can click on this 0 and it goes to the print, or I could hit this bang and it goes to the print. Okay, so messages can be anything. I could say, hello, peanut butter. Okay, and if I click on it, it says, hello, peanut butter. And if I hit it with bang, it says, hello, peanut butter. Messages are not programs. They're just little carrier pigeons. All right, up next is a comment. Now a comment doesn't do anything at all. It's not a carrier pigeon. It's not an object. It's just a little note to your future self. So if I say, click here to send message, okay? I might type that and then I might leave it right there, okay? A comment is a way to just note in your patch what's happening and why it's happening. We leave these all over the place just to help us remember what's doing what, okay? We also sometimes use them for like design purposes. You can make them look pretty and like make a heading. It's just a block of text somewhere, okay? But it doesn't have any function in the program other than to just give us a reminder of what's happening. It's like a footnote for how we built it. They're especially useful when you're collaborating with another person. You might say, this chunk of stuff is for the audio system, whatever. So you just leave a little note that says, hey, this is how this works and this is how this works. You'll be glad for this functionality someday, I promise. Okay, up next is this toggle, okay? Now this is cool. We often use these to like turn things on. If we click on them, you know, it's toggle. But let's look at what a toggle is actually saying. Let's connect it to a print here. Okay. if we look over here, when I turn it on, toggle says 1, and when I turn it off, it says 0. So we like to put toggles on things just to give us an on-off switch and things like that, but all it does is send 1s and 0s. So you can think of it as a fancy way of sending a 1 and a 0. But often we set things up so that they turn on when they get a 1 and they turn off when they get a 0. So that's all a toggle does. So it just outputs a 1 or a 0. And you might say, why does it have an input if we can just click on it to turn it on or off? Well, we could send it a message of a 1 to turn it on if we need to, and in that way we could send it a bang. So we could bang a 1 to turn it on. Let me turn it off first. So in this case, when I hit this bang, we're going to send hello peanut butter to the max window. We're also going to send a 1 to this toggle and to the max window. So the max window should show hello peanut butter and 1. Okay, 1 hello peanut butter. 1 got there first. Generally in Macs, things on the right side of the screen get there first. It's like a weird Macs thing. Okay, we've already talked about bangs and buttons, but those are our next thing here. What I will add, so if I grab one, let me just kind of show you just one kind of funny thing. So if I make like a pyramid of buttons, I can connect them all. I could do that. I could even do that. Okay. So now in this case, bangs can hit bangs all day long. So these are all going to go off. Now if we were counting, let me do this. I'm going to make an object called counter. And it's going to count how many bangs it gets. Okay? We'll put a number box at the end of it so we could see how many it gets. Let's put that down there. We'll scroll down a little bit. Okay, so if I just click this top one, what number is going to come up here? Remember, this just counts bangs. So this bang is going to hit these 2, so that's 2. But it's not counting these 2. It's only going to count these last 3. So this one is going to hit this one, so that's 1 that it's going to get. This one is going to hit this one, that's 2. This one is also going to hit this one, that's 3. And then this one is going to hit this one, that's 4. So the number 4 should come up here if we do it right. 3. Okay, so it only came up with 3. Now, do you think you might know why? I'm going to tell you, but I'm going to go to the next video first to tell you, because this has to do with number boxes. And so let's go to a new video about number boxes and explore this issue. Okay, the number box. There are a few different kinds of number boxes, and I want us to talk about 2. So what the number box does is it just shows you a number. It's kind of like a message box in that it can hold on to a number, and then we can get that number from the number box later, or it can just output a number. We can also click on number boxes so that this turns kind of this yellow color, and then we can type in numbers, hit return, or we can click and drag to get numbers like that. We can input numbers into them, whatever we want. Important to note that this is not a counter. This will not count numbers. This is a counter, but this, if I put a bang into this, it's not going to do anything because it doesn't know what to do with a bang. I could put a message box with a number into it, and then it'll switch to that number. That's how number boxes work. But back to this problem. What was going on here? Why did this count 3? It's because the counter object, like many things, starts counting at 0. So its first digit that it output when it got its first bang was 0. 0 is a number in Max. Okay, so that sent that to the number box, and the number box said 0. And then it sent a 1, a 2, actually it sent 0, 1, 2, 3. That's how counter works. So this isn't, I guess, really a number box problem so much as a counter problem. Okay, but like I said a minute ago, there are 2 different kinds of number boxes. This is called a number box. There's another one called a flow num, which if you hold your mouse down on this just a little bit, you can get this. This is a signal. We're going to use that for audio stuff. But just for numbers, this is a flow num, which basically means floating point number, which is a fancy way to say a number with a decimal point in it. Okay? I could go into a long explanation of this, but here's what you really need to know. These number boxes cannot deal with a number with a decimal point in them. Okay? These are going to throw out the decimal point. Only whole numbers in this. These can deal with whole numbers and numbers with decimal points. So if you're wondering, if you think whatever you're doing might have a decimal point in it, use this. Okay? It used to be in the old days that these required a little bit more computing power than these because they had to hold on to some extra information. That's still true, but we have plenty of computing power, so you could use these for most things if you wanted to. But I would still recommend only use them when you need to, I suppose. Okay, on to the next thing. Okay, up next, sliders. Now, if you click and hold down here, you'll see there's a bunch of different types of sliders. Let's look at the most basic one first. This is kind of exactly what it says, right? It's a slider. It gives us a value based on what it is, what we're doing with it. This is a UI object. We've looked at this already. We've looked at similar things like this already. We could put a number box at the end of it to see what it's doing and to see what its range is. Okay, 0 to 127, just what I expected. We're going to find 127 to be all over the place because that's the range of MIDI values. We'll talk more about that later. Other sliders would be like this dial, which we can set to be whatever we want. That's good for like volume and panning. We've got this. This is a gain slider. This is specifically designed to be used for volume as a way to scale volume. So its range is going to be basically 0 to 1. Here's a funny looking slider. This is a piano keyboard, right? We can use it to send MIDI values for whatever we want. Okay, so there's a lot of fun different sliders. They all basically send a string of numbers and give us different kind of visual ways to see it. All right, 2 more quick things on this. This next one here is Max for Live objects. Now these objects, these are called Max for Live objects, but you can use them for anything you want. You don't have, you could be in the full version of Max and use Max for Live objects. It doesn't really matter. The reason that these are called Max for Live objects is because they look like live. That's really the only reason. So here's another dial, right? This is called a live dial. We could use either one of these for like a volume dial if we wanted to. It's just that this one looks like live, right? So it's a live object. Let's go back there. We've got text boxes, tabs, arrows, buttons, another slider, more things. Here's audio stuff, audio signal. Here's like the main Ableton slider that looks like live, some widgets. I'm not even sure what these are. Live grid. So you can make a little step sequencer with this. It's ugly. So you can play around with those. They work the same as everything else. They just look more live-like. Okay, there's more. There's more than just what we've looked at up here. Here's the everything else button. Okay, so here's a bunch of stuff that we haven't looked at. But all of these are really more objects. Most of these UI things are objects too. Like, see this live dial? Watch this. I'm going to go to object. I'll move it down here. Okay, now I'm going to make an object called live dial. Live.dial. Okay, when I hit return, poof, turns into live dial. So really all of these UI objects are objects. So there are a bajillion objects, and if you start typing, you can start to see all these different objects, you know, come up. These are just the ones that have an A in them. But don't worry, we're gonna get comfortable trying to find the objects that we need, and you know about help files and things that'll help you steer you in the right direction. Just know that there's more than just these few things up here. There's also this kind of everything else button, and also there's a million objects. So this is just kind of your most used stuff.